By noon, the sun was bright enough to make every window in the airport shine like a mirror, but when my best friend walked through the arrival gate alone, wearing her honeymoon dress under a wrinkled coat and holding only one suitcase, it felt like the whole day went dark. Her eyes found mine in the crowd, and before I could even say her name, she whispered the sentence that broke everything: I said the wrong name at the altar. Before the story begins, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Dad Stories if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the kind of love that sometimes breaks before it learns how to heal. My best friend's name was Mariselle Vale, and she had always been the kind of woman who made ordinary mornings feel like scenes from a movie. She laughed loudly in coffee shops, cried at old songs, remembered every birthday, and believed that love, real love, should feel like coming home after a long storm. I had known her since we were 16, back when she wore oversized sweaters, wrote poetry in the margins of her textbooks, and swore she would never marry a man unless he looked at her like she was both his peace and his miracle. When she met Oren Whitlock, everyone thought she had found exactly that. He was calm where she was restless, patient where she was impulsive, and gentle in a way that made people trust him before he even spoke. Their wedding was held on a golden Saturday morning in late spring, under white ribbons and blooming magnolia trees, with sunlight spilling across the garden like a blessing. I stood beside her as maid of honor, holding her bouquet while her hands trembled. She looked beautiful, but not in the easy way brides are supposed to look beautiful. There was something haunted beneath her veil, something I noticed but did not understand. I thought it was nerves. I thought every bride looked back one last time at the life she was leaving behind. Then the vows began. Oren's voice was steady, full of love, full of certainty. But when Mariselle repeated hers, when she reached the part where she was supposed to say his name, she said another man's name instead. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just softly, like a truth escaping from a locked room. I, Mariselle, take you, Caspian. The garden went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop. Oren's face changed in a way I will never forget. It was not anger at first. It was confusion, then hurt, then the slow, terrible realization that the woman he loved had carried someone else into their wedding day. Mariselle covered her mouth, tears already falling, and corrected herself immediately, but it was too late. The name had entered the air. Everyone had heard it. And Oren, kind, heartbroken Oren, still married her. He squeezed her hand, swallowed his pain, and finished the ceremony like a man trying not to bleed in public. They left for their honeymoon the next morning, and I told myself love would fix it. I told myself that people make mistakes under pressure, that one wrong name did not have to destroy 2 lives. But 4 days later, Mariselle came back alone in the middle of a bright afternoon, with her wedding ring hanging from a chain around her neck instead of sitting on her finger. She collapsed into my arms in the airport parking lot, shaking so hard I could barely hold her up. Around us, families loaded suitcases, children laughed, taxi horns sounded, and the world kept moving as if nothing sacred had shattered. At my apartment, sunlight filled the kitchen while Mariselle sat at the table without touching the tea I made her. She stared at her hands for a long time before she told me everything. Caspian was not an old boyfriend, not exactly. He was the boy she had loved before she understood what love could cost. They met in college, during a summer photography program, 2 dreamers with cheap cameras and impossible plans. He made her feel wild and seen. He promised her cities, oceans, rooftops, music, and a life without fear. But Caspian also disappeared whenever life became serious. He loved beginnings, not responsibilities. When Maricelle's mother got sick, Caspian left for an overseas job and sent one message saying he hoped she would understand. She never answered him. Years passed. She buried that pain so deeply she convinced herself it was gone. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Caspian sent her a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter, folded into a cream envelope, saying he had never stopped loving her and that he would regret losing her for the rest of his life. He did not ask her to run away. That was almost worse. He simply apologized, beautifully and too late. Mariselle read the letter alone in her car outside a grocery store while the afternoon sun beat through the windshield, and all the grief she had never allowed herself to feel rose inside her. She should have told Oren. She should have told me. Instead, she hid the letter in a drawer and walked down the aisle with two names fighting inside her chest. On the honeymoon, Oren tried. That was the part that hurt her most. He did not shout on the plane. He did not humiliate her in the hotel lobby. He took her hand at dinner the first night and asked quietly, "Do you love me, or do you love the life I was safe enough to give you?" Mariselle said she loved him, and she meant it, but her answer arrived too quickly, like someone trying to close a door before the wind got in. For 3 days, they walked along bright beaches under a merciless blue sky, pretending to be newlyweds while silence sat between them like a third person. On the 4th morning, Oren packed his bag before sunrise. He left her a note beside the hotel coffee maker. It said, "I don't want to be your punishment for surviving him. I love you too much to stay where I am not fully chosen." When Mariselle finished reading those words aloud to me, she broke in a way I had never seen. She did not sob loudly. She folded inward, as if something inside her had finally given up trying to stand. I wanted to blame Caspian. I wanted to blame the letter, the timing, fate, nerves, anything. But the truth was more painful. Mariselle had hurt a good man because she had confused silence with healing. She had mistaken moving on for being whole. The days after that were strange and heavy. The world outside stayed bright. Mornings came with sunshine, neighbors watered plants, school buses passed, bakeries opened, people bought flowers and coffee and newspapers. But inside Maricelle's life, everything felt paused. She moved into my spare room because she could not bear the apartment she and Oren had chosen together. Her wedding gifts remained unopened. Her phone filled with messages she could not answer. Some relatives called her selfish. Others called Oren weak for marrying her after the mistake. Nobody seemed to understand that heartbreak is rarely clean. It is messy, human, embarrassing, and full of love arriving in the wrong shape. For weeks, Mariselle punished herself. She stopped wearing colorful clothes. She avoided mirrors. She wrote apology letters to Oren but never sent them. Every afternoon, when the sun crossed the living room floor, she sat by the window with the wedding ring in her palm. I finally told her that guilt was not the same as growth. If she truly loved Oren, she had to become honest, even if honesty did not win him back. That afternoon, she opened the drawer where she had hidden Caspian's letter and read it one final time. Then she placed it in a bowl on my balcony and burned it under the clear daylight. She cried while the paper curled into ash, not because she wanted Caspian back, but because she was finally saying goodbye to the version of herself who had waited for an apology instead of building a life. 3 months passed before Oren agreed to meet her. He chose a small public garden near the city library, the kind of place where office workers ate lunch on benches and old men played chess beneath trees. It was a bright weekday afternoon. No rain. No dramatic thunder. Just ordinary sunlight, which somehow made everything feel more real. Mariselle wore a simple blue dress and no makeup except the courage it took to show up. I waited far away near a fountain, close enough to be there if she needed me, far enough to let the moment belong to them. Oren arrived carrying himself like someone who had learned to live with an invisible wound. He looked thinner. Older, somehow. But when he saw her, his face softened before he could stop it. They sat on a bench under a jacaranda tree, purple petals scattered around their feet. Mariselle did not beg. She did not make excuses. She told him about the letter, about her fear, about how unfair it had been to let him marry only part of her truth. She told him she loved him, but more importantly, she told him he deserved someone who could choose him without using him as proof that she was healed. Oren listened without interrupting. When she finished, He looked at the trees for a long time and said that the hardest part had not been hearing another name. The hardest part had been realizing she had been alone in a battle he would have helped her fight. That sentence changed her. I saw it happen. Not magically, not like a movie where pain disappears after one honest conversation, but quietly, like a locked window opening. Mariselle understood then that love was not only romance and vows and beautiful mornings. Love was trust with the ugly parts included. Love was saying, "This is where I am broken," before someone cut themselves trying to hold you. They did not get back together that day. Oren did not slip the ring back onto her finger. He hugged her once, carefully, and walked away with tears in his eyes. Mariselle watched him until he disappeared beyond the library steps. Then she came to me, and for the first time since the airport, she was not collapsing. She was standing. Grieving, yes. Still in love, yes. But standing. The year that followed became the making of her. She went to therapy every Tuesday afternoon. She volunteered at a community kitchen on Sundays. She apologized to Oren's parents in a handwritten letter, not to defend herself, but to honor the hurt she had caused. She stopped asking whether she would ever be forgiven and started asking whether she was becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. Some days she failed. Some days she cried in grocery store aisles because a song from the wedding played overhead. Some days she laughed again and felt guilty for laughing. Healing did not arrive like sunrise. It came in pieces, in small brave choices, in quiet afternoons when she did not reach for the past. Almost a year later, Oren's sister invited Mariselle to a charity art show. Oren would be there. Mariselle nearly refused, but then she said something I will always remember: "I'm tired of living like my shame deserves more space than my hope." So she went. The event was held in a sunlit hall with tall windows, paintings lined along white walls, and children from the community program selling handmade cards near the entrance. Mariselle had donated photographs she had taken during her volunteer work, simple images of hands serving meals, sunlight on empty chairs, old faces smiling over soup bowls. Oren stopped in front of one photograph for a long time. It showed two elderly hands holding a cracked teacup together, neither hand strong enough alone, both steady together. He found Mariselle near the windows. They talked. Not like strangers. Not like lovers rushing back into fire. Like two people who had survived the same storm from different sides. Oren told her he had been angry for a long time. Then he had missed her. Then he had hated that he missed her. Then, slowly, he had begun to understand that forgiveness did not mean pretending the wound never happened. It meant deciding the wound would not be the only thing left between them. Mariselle cried, but she did not reach for him. She let him have his truth without trying to turn it into her comfort. They began again slowly. Coffee in public places. Long walks in daylight. Honest conversations that hurt before they healed. Oren asked hard questions. Mariselle answered them. When she did not know an answer, she said so. That honesty became the bridge between them. Not passion, not nostalgia, not fear of being alone, but truth. Months later, on another bright afternoon, Oren took her back to the same garden where they had first spoken after everything fell apart. He did not kneel. He simply held out her wedding ring, the same one she had worn on a chain, and said, "I don't want the old marriage back. I want to build a new one, only if we both arrive whole." Mariselle took the ring with shaking hands. This time, when she said his name, she said it like a promise that had passed through fire and survived. Oren. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Dad Stories. Your support helps stories about forgiveness, honesty, and second chances reach someone who may need them today. Special request: comment "I believe in second chances" if you have ever seen love heal after heartbreak. Years later, when Mariselle tells people about her marriage, she does not hide the broken beginning. She says some love stories do not start with perfection. Some begin with a mistake so painful it forces everyone to become honest. She says the wrong name at the altar almost ended her life with Oren, but the truth that followed taught them how to love without pretending. And every afternoon, when sunlight fills their kitchen and Oren reaches for her hand across the table, Mariselle remembers the airport, the suitcase, the shame, the ashes of an old letter, and the man who loved her enough to leave until she learned how to fully come back.